And everybody agrees fishing is going to be the most regulated activity in the world, but I think they have overdone it.
What about the offshore drilling aspect to it? The wanting to at least do sound.
Yeah, we don't want to do it in Georges Bank. I think there's going to be offshore drilling in a lot of places, but Georges Bank is way too important and too sensitive. And Ed Markey took a good role in making sure that even though the building had become law, Ed's been our lead guy in energy, and he worked with the speaker, so Georges Bank was protected and the bill had passed.
Would you support at least soundings in Georges Bank or Stellwagen Bank to find deposits?
No, what's the point of doing that if you don't plan to get them? And I do think, there are enough other places to go and drill without doing that. There's a real trade-off there.
The CRA has been under a lot of attack.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little more about why you think the CRA has been under siege?
Because it's an alternative explanation of deregulation for the subprime crisis, so that the people who want to, it's so they can continue to have, frankly, unlimited credit default swaps and collateralized obligation derivatives. I mean, it's patently ridiculous. I mean, it just, again, if you look at the institutions, you guys know to talk to Rosengren at the Fed, who's done good stuff on this. The CRA covers banks, doesn't cover the non-banks. And even there, I have a letter, I have it. In 1995, I wrote to Larry Lindsay, if I put it in here, and said, people have said we have a problem with CRA causing imprudent loans. Is that true? 1995, it had been in effect 8 years. He wrote me back a letter, I'll send you a copy, said no, not true. And he was a Bush appointee to the Fed. Now, and because that predated subprime loan. Same with Fannie and Freddie. Yeah, Fannie and Freddie had problems. But the problems with Fannie and Freddie weren't unique to Fannie and Freddie. It all has to do with subprime loan. But the key thing, you go back to it, the CRA institutions didn't make subprime loans. Fannie and Freddie weren't covered by the CRA. Some of them did make a mistake in that they bought subprime loans they shouldn't have bought. But CRA was never specific to this or that loan. A lot of CRA activity, by the way, is non-residential. A lot of CRA activity is, economic development. And let's put it this way. Before this current situation, when we started talking about deregulation, you didn't hear anybody blaming CRA. And it is very clear, it is the alternative to deregulation.
Do you fear that it's going to come under attack in a way that actually could harm it?
Not if the Democrats win. One, the evidence is so weak on this that, including the banks themselves understand that they were the ones covered and weren't on. No, I think that the facts have helped them survive that attack. What has AIG got to do with CRA or, Lehman Brothers?
If the polls hold true, and that's a big if in this day and age, you'll have the White House, you'll increase the hold on the Senate, and likely the hold on the House. If ideological dominance was a problem for the Republicans, why is it not a problem for the Democrats?
Because we have one, because we're very conscious of this, and that's a part of it. Two, Barack Obama has been a very thoughtful guy. I think he has done much better at resisting the push to take positions that were damaging to him politically on the left than other Democrats. But it's also the case that we have a more significant moderate group than they do. We have the blue dogs in the House. The moderate Republicans are very much less so. We were at the White House when McCain decided to play Andy Kaufman, remember? Here I come to save the day on the bailout. There was 10 around the White House, 15 of us. So Mitch McConnell says, Mr. President, we can pass this bill, and my caucus is united on it in the Senate. You're going to get all of my support from the conservatives to the moderates. Harry Reid said, yeah, both of them. And it's even, and the House even more so. There was an ideological death grip that's held by the Republicans in the House. We have the blue dogs. One of the things that happens is, and by the way, if we win, if we pick up another 20, 25 seats, half of them are going to be more than moderates. We already hold the liberals. I can pick up these seats in Cleveland, Chicago, or New York City. We can pick up one seat in New York City. There is a greater degree of moderation the Blue Dogs play a more moderating role on the Democratic side.
And where do you see yourself falling in that ideological spectrum?
It depends. On freedom of expression and personal freedom, I am very much on the left. I am for gambling. I am for legalizing, not legalizing, but for removing the criminal penalties on marijuana. I am for letting people read what they want to read and see what they want to see and do what they want to do in their personal freedom. I just reread a great book, John Stuart Mill on Liberty. He's a wonderful writer. It's a wonderful book. And that logical thing affects me, it's my business, stay away from me. And on the military spending, I'm going to be, again, one of the people furthest out there. I just think it is time to recognize that we've got to cut military spending substantially if we're going to do it about healthcare. On the economy, I am more market-oriented than a lot of my liberal friends. And I have the same goals that they do for diminishing inequality. I just think that is much more efficiently done with the market than against it. When I became the senior Democrat in 2003, my goal was to dispute the argument that if you were liberal and you cared about ending discrimination, you cared about diminishing inequality, you got to have inequality to have a capitalist system. If you cared about a clean environment, that somehow you had to be hostile to business. I think I have succeeded in that. I mean, I think I've shown that, yeah, you can care about economic fairness, et cetera. And, I have good relations with the banking community. We did pass the first credit card regulation bill through the House, didn't pass the whole Congress yet, but it will next year. We did a subprime lending bill, although that was mostly for the non-banks. We got the first legislation on CEO compensation. So I see myself in that sense as part of an effort to show that being a liberal and being pro-market is very sensible. That in fact, in the current situation, just like FDR, I think the capitalism and the free market will be better served by those of us who understand the need for a reasonable amount of government regulation than they were by those who said no regulation at all and allowed their own worst instincts to discredit them.
You mentioned their own worst instincts. There is a sentiment publicly that somebody should be held accountable
Yes.
for this. Is that going to happen? Is there
I think it will.
somebody?
Yes, there is. With Obama, look, there are people, Billy Galvin again, there are people who were saying one thing privately and then telling the investors publicly. There were people who knew that auction rate securities were no good. That's one reason why I want investor protection outside of systemic risk. It wasn't going to happen under the Bush administration. The statute of limitations on most of this stuff will not have expired. It's generally 3 years. So when I think the Obama administration, yes, I expect to see some criminal prosecutions under the Obama administration that you wouldn't have seen on, the Bush wouldn't have.